We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, WeatherBrains, episode number 651. It's the pre-show, this marvelous, marvelous time of the program where we do a few things here. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. Brian Peters, what outrageous thing would you like to share with the group?
I'm ready for fall. It's a little outrageous considering we still have July and August to go and September.
But you know, I saw my first back-to-school commercial today.
Oh, that's not good.
So that means that fall's got to be getting a little closer. Of course, where we are down here, for those that don't know, school goes back like the first week in August.
Yes.
So we are now less than 1 month away from school beginning.
When I ran out for supper tonight, I also saw a yellow leaf on my car. So I wouldn't say that means the colors are changing already, but gives me hope.
The first fall leaf.
Yeah.
That's awesome. No, it'll be here before. Look, the NFL guys down here, they're getting ready to go to camp. Camp. They'll be playing preseason games in less than a month. They start preseason here in like 4 weeks. So
yeah, that's right.
When footballs start flying, you know it's got to be getting close to fall.
That's what makes August adorable, right? We got football starting.
Yeah, and all the high school guys are doing two-a-days, and
hey, did you see that? Did you see that statistic from Phil Klotzbach? They just tweeted out. I found it very interesting.
No, Phil's got good stuff. What's he got?
Well, it's just that he said that looking back to this, I don't want to quote it incorrectly, so I was going to see if I could find it here. But looking back through records from the satellite time using 1966 and Tyros as the beginnings of that there have only been 3 seasons in which we had already had 2 hurricanes in the Atlantic Basin. And one was 1966, one was 1968, and one was 2005. And what's interesting is one of those was super active, one of them was active, and one of them was downright boring. So, in other words, the number of hurricanes by July 10th or 9th is not an indicator of what kind of season you'll have.
Means nothing.
Means nothing.
Wow, goodness, I got some great pictures. All right, so let's see here. We got Bill Murray on the show.
And I want to ask, where's all those water spouts when I'm at the coast?
I know.
All these pictures you've been posting, James, of the people sending you these water spouts. I go down there for a month and I can't get a water spout.
And that one off Perdido was a big, hairy, ugly one.
Yeah. That was a nice looking one.
No, I've never seen one. Everybody on this show, everybody listening to this show, everybody's seen one but me. I don't know what it is.
I've only seen one, but it was at Navarre. I about drove off that bridge, that high bridge.
Yeah.
Going over from Navarre back to the mainland, I saw that water spout. I about drove off the bridge. All right, I got to get some guests here.
And how many times do you see a storm do what Burl did?
Burl? Is that how you say it? Burl?
How do you pronounce it?
Barrel? I've been saying barrel.
Barrel. Okay.
I will admit I have not looked at the pronunciation guide.
I think barrel is right. Yeah. But how many times do you see one pop up to hurricane force that fast and then die just as quickly?
And how small was that thing? Goodness. It was just like tiny.
Yes. If you blinked, you'd have missed it.
So did you guys get that PR letter from the PR guy about International Skinny Dip Day?
Yes.
This is better than heat tips. I mean, this is way better than heat tips.
I didn't even know there was a National Skinny Dip Day.
The National Association for Nude Recreation sent us a PR email today. I wish this is the time where I wish JB Elliott was on this show. I mean, I wish JB was here to chime in on this. But they are encouraging people to have a vacation.
Oh my goodness.
The tips are, number 1, cool off. Skinny dip in your backyard pool. Number 2, Make housekeeping fun. Shed those clothes. Turn on some music and get out the mop.
Brian already does that.
Number 3, get in touch with nature. Garden nude in the privacy of your backyard. Number 4, exercise in the buff. Hit the treadmill or the yoga mat. And number 5, telecommute in the nude. Working from home in the nude is gaining popularity. So,
and how do you know that? How did they know that? What hair JB had would have curled it completely if you sent him that public relations news note.
Oh man,
relations nightmare.
And normally I just totally delete this stuff, but I'm glad I didn't delete that one.
You tweeted that one.
You came out there, James.
Do you suppose Aubrey got that one too?
Did you get that one, Aubrey, from the National?
I don't. A lot of times I do get some of those, but I don't recall getting that. I could have overlooked it and just deleted it.
Yeah. And see, I get those things all the time, and I just tend to hit the delete button. They're gone. And often I'll just hit the spam button and, filter these kind of messages. The next one I get, just send it straight to the archive, and I don't want to look at it. So, but I'm glad I looked at that. That gave me a semi-decent chuckle. I might do the morning TV segment tomorrow in the nude. That would be the one to do it. Because I'm home and I'm sitting down, so you only see the top up here like this. So, but then again, maybe not.
We recommend against it.
So, Bill, one of the things I have on my reminders it is to register for the NWA.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that next week.
Oh, I need to do that too.
Yeah, registering.
You're now a speaker and an MC and about 10 other jobs at Weatherfest. So
there's probably no hotel rooms left. I'm bad about. Well, I got burned by the AMS a couple of years ago. I was scheduled to go. I want to say it was 2 summers ago, or maybe it was last summer. Yeah, it was last summer. I was going to go to their broadcast deal I think it was in Kansas City. And it was in June, and we were going to do a lot of things, had a lot of work to do. And then we had a tropical system. Remember that? We had a tropical system in June that came through here. I don't even remember the name of it. But it spawned tornadoes. And sure enough, we had a number of significant tornadoes, and I couldn't go. You would think that they would be understanding, and they wouldn't refund my money.
Oh.
They said you can use it for credit at the AMS annual meeting in January, which I can't attend for a lot of different reasons. So I was burned, and I guess I kind of wait until the last minute to see if there's any hurricanes coming up, but maybe not.
Yeah, you have a big job. You can't. There can't be a hurricane.
But anyway, I have on my calendar. NWA, let's see, the 25th of August through the 29th of August.
That's it.
And I guess it's in St. Louis, right? So that's who flies up there? Is that Southwest?
Southwest goes there, yes.
Yeah.
They probably all go there, but Southwest used to have a direct flight. I don't know if they still do or not.
Delta, United.
Yeah, all those. American. Probably U.S. Air. You'd be flying backwards to get there, though. I hate flying backwards to get there.
If it's Southwest, I always choose to go through Hobby Airport in Houston. They've got the greatest cheap Chinese airport food in America. The Revenge of the Phoenix. Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
The thing, if you ever fly with me and we go through Houston, you might not want to sit with me once we complete that meal. The Revenge of the Phoenix, but man, is it good.
Is that really the name of it?
Yes.
It's predictive of the future after you eat it, huh?
we went to where'd we go? Denver, and I couldn't get the Houston thing. We one loop we went through Chicago, one through Dallas, and I missed it. So But I had a hankering. I had a wild hair to go to the All-Star game next week.
Are you going to do it?
No, I don't think I can. I would love to go. Our friend Mitch Moreland is playing. He made the American League All-Star team. Washington D.C. Nationals, where the Nationals play.
Stadium too.
And the last time
we went to James, let's go.
Well, I looked at StubHub, and now I need to send a note to Robert Albritton or some of my buddies in Washington that are in the loop. But I looked at StubHub, and the standing room only is like $300 a piece.
Really?
And then the good seats are going for $6, $7, $8 a piece. That's not working for
them.
That's
national championship material. What are they doing here?
I mean, come on, man. Who's going to pay $8,000 for a ticket to the All-Star game? But anyway, I'm babbling on here.
A lot of people will.
I've never seen an All-Star game, and I would love to do that. And the last time we went to a baseball game in Washington, guess where they played? RFK Stadium.
The big round stadium. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember watching that thing as a kid growing up, and so it was kind of cool to go there. But I guess they've torn that thing down. It was in bad shape.
I think it's still there, isn't it? I think it's still there. They used to play soccer there, maybe.
It's reminiscent of Legion Field. It's just run down and old and tired and kind of like me.
Yeah, exactly.
So
kind of like all of us.
Yeah.
Except for you, Kim, and you, Aubrey. The rest of us run down.
All right. Let's see if we can get our guests giving a mic check.
Can Joe hear us?
Yo, Joe.
Yes, I can hear.
Oh, good. We have your avatar. We don't have your smiling face, but we hear you.
Yeah, and again, most people listen for those that are joining us here. So if we don't have video, it's not the end of the world. But
now see Al down there. Al, can you hear us? Okay? Good.
Al, we got audio and video with you. You're looking good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this show's going to go till midnight tonight.
Woo! I think we ought to do an all-nighter just to prove how tough we are.
Let's do like a lock-in show where you can't leave.
So it's no big deal.
We do need to have like a marathon WeatherBrains. That would be fun. Like 24 hours of WeatherBrains.
Wow. I think YouTube shuts you down after a certain time. I don't know what the limit of being live on YouTube is. That's one way to find out.
Let's do it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Have a 1 gigabyte file for your audio file. A little long show this week. Hope you have a big pipe. Gosh, man, I've seen this judge thing. I've seen enough of this. I mean, my whole everything's blowing up with the news here. I gotta focus. So we're gonna start 30 minutes after the hour. See Kim here. Got Aubrey.
Don't see Andre yet. Andre Bernier.
But Brian, you take the Jeep Wednesday because you got a fair. I'm just going to speak to a Rotary Club. So
thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I'll be in Auburn, Alabama. For those that are listening or watching, if you are in Auburn, Alabama, Rotary Club on Wednesday.
That's a heck of a run for you to make.
That's cool. I love out of market things. Auburn, it's about a 2-hour drive from Birmingham, and I'll see a lot of old friends there. And be at Alabama Power Company Thursday. Safety meeting. Yeah, at the headquarters.
Yeah. Okay.
John Jones Elementary Friday. I got it. My calendar's jammed. Guess who's in the calendar next Tuesday? Bill Murray at the Waffle House. I can't wait. That warms my heart. And then I'll be speaking later that day to the weather camp at Western Kentucky University via electronics. I'm not
WeatherBrains jet to make that schedule.
Now we're going to do. I have been to WKU. Did a weather conference up there. Spent a couple of days on their campus. It's fantastic. but I'll be doing a Skype session with, and these are, I want to say, high school students that are interested in meteorology. So I'll see them next Tuesday. Got a big event coming up at Jacksonville State University on. Why am I giving my schedule? I feel like I'm promoting myself. Little cheap, selfish promotion here. Jacksonville State University on the 27th. That's a big event. Community event as they get ready for the kids to come back to school and kind of celebrate how far they've come after a horrible tornado back on March 19th. And welcome to our television viewers that are watching on the television side. We're so glad you're here. This is WeatherBrains, the pre-show, where we about to crank this thing up, and let's do it. I think we're all here. Bill, do we need to wait for a second, or are we good to go?
We were hoping Andre Bernier was going to join us, but from Cleveland, but he got the invite. I think it was correct on the email, wasn't it, Joe?
Yes.
So maybe he'll join us before it's over. But
Hey,
we've got
Joe,
a great group here, so we're good to
Joe,
go.
can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, looking
Sound
good, too, Joe.
Great. All right, let's get this thing rolling here. And I think I got everything squared away. We're using Hangouts now for the morning television thing I do. We dumped Skype. I don't even want to talk of that. That makes me so mad. You can't choose the input on Skype anymore. They said it makes it easier to use. That would be like putting out a television where you can't change the channel. I mean,
way easier to use.
So, yeah. So in the morning, I have to use I use a program called Wirecast, a virtual switcher. So I use the audio out and the video from that. I got to change it around, but we're good. So here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains, episode number 651, the weekly show that's all about weather. This is for July 9th. 2018. Thanks a lot for taking the time to join us. We're in the dog days of summer. Brian Peters having a dog day afternoon.
Yes, I'm ready for the fall. I can't believe it. Already just a month of hot weather, and boom, I'm ready for fall.
Remember the movie Dog Day Afternoon? That was a great movie. Al Pacino. It came out in the mid 70s. So we are in the dog days down here in the deep south. But we talked about this in the pre-show. Before you know it, footballs will be flying.
Yep.
NFL preseason begins in like 4 weeks, and college less than 2 months. It's all about to happen. Look who's here. Aubrey Urbanowitz is not in an edit booth. You were back in the studio. What would they kick you out of there or what?
No, I'm working. We have a series that we're doing for the month of July that I came up with, and I'm helping our morning meteorologist do a little bit more research on that because it airs Wednesday and it's not done yet. So kind of helping with that. And I don't even have my earbuds out. That's how behind I am. And we have a new graphics package, and so I think I have like 4 different things up at the same time. So
well, we will relieve you of the email duties until next week. You don't need to be
well, and now I get a message from Brian that I need a pick. Oh my God.
I'm so demanding.
You've always got this, you know.
That's my pick.
I don't want to do that. I will come up with something.
Right.
But no, it's an exciting show tonight, and I'm really interested to hear all this stuff. So it should be a really awesome show, and happy to be here.
Great. Kim Cloco McLean. So when's the due date? I forgot.
Hurricane.
September 12th.
Yeah, good job, Bill. Yeah, and Aubrey.
The perfect day, Hurricane Frederick anniversary.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's coming up. I've got just about 2 months to go. So the joy of the heat of summer lies before me, and then we'll see if it happens, during a hurricane landfall. That's pretty much how things would go in my world. I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
If
I
a
think
child
y'all
born on that day, I will never forget his or her birthday.
You would not.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the climatological peak of the hurricane season like September 10th?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. There's going to be something going on. I mean, there is going to be something going on.
Find you a hospital near the landfall, Kim, and the low pressure will induce.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'm sure that's science.
I think the baby needs an acronym for a name in honor of the National Weather Service and the peak of hurricane season. I think the baby needs an acronym for a name.
Oh no!
For a name.
I would not let Aubrey be in charge of that department.
I can go down the tubes real quick. Wow. No,
No.
our two boys were born in August, and I, from my wife, I know how uncomfortable the summer heat can be. So, hopefully, we'll get through this with no hurricanes and no oddities. But you never know. I saw a birth in an evacuation shelter during a hurricane.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
horrifying. It was horrifying. I want to say 18 years old, and there was a storm. Bill Murray, you might remember this. Some of the other guests on here called Hurricane Eloise.
Oh yeah, 1975.
75, and I was in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And understand, I was a year out of high school. My hobby then, and still is today, ham radio. And they needed some help with ham radio operators and gears. So me and a friend headed south, and they sent us to Fort Walton Beach, and they wanted us in an evacuation shelter. And I want to say it was at Choctawhatchee High School. Pretty sure it was. And we heard this lady that seemed in great distress. And of course, the thing was making landfall. You know, the noise is so deafening. And we realized this lady's having a baby over here. And, you know, I was like 18. I don't know nothing about birthing no babies. So we're going to stand on the other side. But they delivered the child, very healthy. And it was a boy, so they couldn't name him Eloise. I guess they could, but they didn't.
Johnny Cash song could come out of that.
Yeah, boy named Eloise. So that was awesome. But anyway, but Bill, bring in our guest. I'm excited about this show. This might be a really good one here.
Yeah,
I'm pumped.
This could be an all-nighter, James. I'm excited too. First, our first guest WeatherBrain tonight is a legend in meteorology, friend of the show. He was the first director of meteorology at the Weather Channel. He was a chief meteorologist at WSI and was Dr. Dewpoint on the Intellicast website. That's how I always followed him. But he's currently the co-chief meteorologist at Weather Analytics. Joe, thank you for being here tonight, Joe DeLeo.
My pleasure.
And you're looking good. You got all your technical connections up there. Is that a picture of you and John Coleman back there in the over your right shoulder?
It is, in fact.
There you go. The late, great John Coleman.
Working at Good Morning America in Chicago.
Wow. So it's great to have you with us. It's great to have you with us tonight. And you've introduced me to Al Lipson, who I never knew. Al, you're a new friend of the show. You were a lead forecaster at the Weather Channel back in the early days, and I had no idea you were a wisecracker and a funny guy.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. I worked the night shifts at the Weather Channel, and as one person said after I left, she said, "Al, since you left, it's like a morgue here." So, yeah, I kept things kind of cracked up.
So, you know, May the 2nd, 1982 was an important day in my life because I, loved weather from, early childhood and, was, just basically fanatic about it, but literally had no sources of information. I mean, 1972, 73, 74, it was basically commercial radio. And a wonderful recorded phone line at the National Weather Service in Birmingham. Brian Peters, you wouldn't probably remember that one, but you probably remember other ones around the country that were like that. And if I were lucky, the forecaster would be changing the recording and they would pick up and talk to me for a second back in the day. Because I would get them to read me those hurricane advisories. Al, do you remember Hurricane Eloise James was talking about?
Not really.
So
I remember a lot of hurricanes, but
that was before your time.
If John Hope was living, he would know what you were talking about. He would know the exact date, time, and everything else. It was like a walking encyclopedia. And I came from Des Moines, Iowa, so I was kind of landlocked, and really didn't get interested in hurricane forecasting until I went to the Weather Channel and met John Hope, and that's where I learned most of my tropical meteorology from the expert.
Well, he was an amazing man, and Joe, he actually collapsed at the point of landfall Hurricane Hugo, right?
Right, but so many hours in that he felt woozy, and but he wanted to stay. But I think they told him get some rest, John. We'll take it from there. But John was a very interesting hire at the very beginning. We were trying to pull together a staff. We had no idea we'd have 58 on and off camera meteorologists show up in March 1982. And when we first were talking, John and I, about what it would take, how many people, we were in the teens and low 20s. And gradually, as we started in the to outline exactly what we were going to present, and 24 hours, 7 days a week. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And one of the resumes that we got was from John Hope. He was a senior hurricane forecaster at the National Hurricane Center, and he was retiring. And he had some experience on the air, but John and I didn't know quite what to do with it, with that resume, and with John Hope. We already blew our budget and the rest of the staff. And so John said, let's think about it for a little bit. So a week later I said, John, we can't let this guy hang. And he said, why don't you give him a call? So I gave John Hope a call, and I said, John, this is Joe DeLeo from the Weather Channel. And he said, what took you so long? And so he said, I had a great conversation with him. We invited him up to Atlanta. We sat down with him, and we said, well, this guy oozes credibility. He adds so much to the Weather Channel that even though our original thoughts were, how often do you need a hurricane, weathercaster, in a year? John said, look, I'll do weather all year long, and I'll train your staff. And like Al said, we all learned so much from John. It was one of the best hires we made. He was there, what, John, 20 years, Al?
I think so. Yeah, so he was there quite a while.
Not long enough.
No, he passed away. Had some heart surgery or something, and it didn't go well. And he passed away. I think it was about 82, 81, something like that.
Well, you knew when you turned on that tropical update and John Hope was working, you were going to learn something. Like watching Good Morning America. Good Morning America was important to me because John Coleman, and I had grown up with the Today Show, like you, I think, Al, you mentioned in the book, Frank Blair and the stuff that he did in the mornings. But what John Coleman did was revolutionary in terms of education and very specific information. So talk about his genius for you. Joe, why don't you lead off, and you jump in too, Al.
John always was interested in, understanding, and it started with his father, who was a college professor, but had been a farmer, and take his 5 boys or 4 boys and a girl for a walk every evening, and he would point out the kind of clouds that were up in the sky and which way the wind was blowing and what that usually meant for the weather. And he piqued John's interest. And then a little later, he was going to the University of Illinois in Champaign and got a job at the TV station. His voice was so incredible. He was an announcer there. That one evening, the weathercaster didn't show up, and so I'll do it. So John went on the air, and it's actually a tape of it. It with magnetic numbers on the wall. He was putting the numbers up over Charleston, South Carolina, and said this was Miami, and the numbers would fall off the map. But it was good enough that the guy said, well, we love your voice, John. You can learn some, more about geography and weather. You're our guy. And John started 61 years in the industry there, right then. But all along, he was the first guy to use radar and satellite imagery in presentations at Good Morning America. And he had Macidas when I went to work for him. You talk about, traveling from to a hot place. We were in Chicago, and I was in Chicago with him in 1980, and he was showing me Macidas. He was the guy from the university. How do I use this? What are these products that how can we use this to make our forecast better? And on the Weather Channel, we had a lot of educational features on Good Morning America. You remember he had 4 shows, and in one show he spent an extra minute and a half educating somebody on, the Great Lakes Fury. What is a Great Lakes Fury? Or how do we get thunderstorms during the afternoon sometimes, and sometimes in later summer they happen at night, but that was part of John's frustrations. because sometimes that 3-minute segment, we worked all night. You believe John came in before midnight?
Wow.
Do his morning shows. How many morning TV weather guys in the networks come in before midnight to prepare for the 4 shows in the morning? And John did, and we worked all night in producing the show. And then you get up there, and David Hartman would be the anchor for the 4 shows, and he'd be talking to the sports forecaster and broadcaster, and the video would go bad, and the banter went long, and so John's 3 minutes went to 2 minutes and a half to 2 minutes to 1.5 minutes. So we worked all night, and he had to cram it all into a minute and a half or drop it, and he was very mad. So he said, what we need is what CNN has. It's 24 hours a day to do weather. And 4 or 5 years, he pushed that idea. It was his dream. A lot of people thought it an impossible dream, but it happened. And it took 58 people in meteorology and broadcasting, a total of over 120 people, and people like Al Lipson to come in and make it happen. Al?
And Al, you got to
we
unmute.
muted Al, so let's unmute you there. If you'll hover over the top of the screen, you'll see that mute button there. Then there you go.
I think I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, now you're perfect.
Okay, I was causing feedback, so I was muted. I guess that's what I did at the Weather Channel. Caused a lot of feedback there. Sure, back then they were trying to mute me then too. So. but am I still okay? I guess.
Yes, you're perfect.
Okay, yeah. It was a fun time when we first started out, and the people that started the Weather Channel, we kind of affectionately named ourselves the Weather Channel Pioneers, and we wrote a book about it, as you well know. And the book explains some of the things that we're talking about tonight, but it also explains how the Weather Channel not only how it came about, how John struggled with it. He had a lot of people, a lot of naysayers when he went to, try to sell the Weather Channel the idea. They thought it was a joke. Who's going to watch 24/7 weather? But as it turns out, it wasn't a joke. And in 36 years, it's almost become an American icon because the Weather Channel has been one of the been around cable now for 36 plus years. And we were the first to actually, John's concept was solid because it was the first time that you could get local weather and national weather at the same time. It was also, people were interested in it because it was the first time that the mothers and fathers of their sons and daughters who had moved away would know what the weather was, and also vice versa, because they would know wherever somebody lived, they would know what the weather was. And I noticed that that became very important to people, knowing what the weather is in a location other than their own backyard, because they have relatives that need that are all scattered across the country. They'd like to know that. So we kind of revolutionized the media. The media, I mean, there wasn't much weather. One of John's big deal was that he didn't get much time on Good Morning America for the weather. And he wanted something where he could have more time on the weather. I'd have a 24/7 cable network that could do the weather. And that was a great concept. And, it's kind of interesting. When we first started working, we were just most of the people that were hired were just, I call them young bucks, most in their 20s and 30s, at least on the meteorology end of it. Of course, the management was a little bit older, but even management was young at that time. We were all a lot younger 36 years ago. But it was interesting. We had a reunion about 6 years ago, and the 33 union. And I don't think people really realized or had an appreciation for John. And John and a couple of other people in management didn't have the appreciation that they had for the people that were working there, the pioneers, 36 years ago until the reunion. So it took kind of, years later that everyone had an appreciation for everybody of what we accomplished. And we tell that in the book. And we have a lot of stories in the book from people that actually worked there. So it was, looking back, I enjoyed working there, and we all seem to have a kinship of working there, particularly the pioneers, the people that worked there in the early days, because it was kind of flying by the seat of our pants a lot of times, and there were a lot of problems, but there, and as I say in the book, I say that it was kind of the first reality TV show that there was on television, because it was all ad lib, all the OCMs ad lib, and there was nothing. It was the only part that was scripted was what they were going to show. They had a Quantel system. They put in the frames in the Quantel, and that was the only thing that was really set in stone. But everything that was said, and especially the tosses, were all ad lib in it. And if you go back and look at some of the old tapes, it's hysterical. So I think that we were actually the first reality television show, especially on cable TV, unbeknown to us at the time.
Well, and I think that we overlook, like as I referred to earlier, my interest in weather, was basically ignited by the Weather Channel, because suddenly I had, this unbelievable access to information, radars from around the country, warnings in real time, and all of that was not easily done. You had to go to the Weather Service, Joe, and convince them to change how they did forecasts. Talk about that for a moment, because that was not going to work without what you did there. And I don't know who the director was then, but WeatherStar and those important technologies wouldn't have worked without some standardization.
Right. You had to get the forecast standardized so that the forecast for day parts were, isolated. You had today, tonight, tomorrow, the outlook. And it was random across the country. Some offices would say, forecast tonight through Thursday, partly cloudy, occasional showers, low mostly in the 50s, highs mostly near 80, and how do you break that up into 4 pages? You can't. So we had to convince them that you had to put in delimiters to allow us to separate with intelligent systems the forecast into the right pages in the right sequence. But also the warnings. Al, tell them about.
Talk about the damn box. I want to hear about the damn box.
That story.
Yeah. Well, we had an orientation. This was kind of funny. We had an orientation in March when everybody that was hired at the Weather Channel went to this one room. We were introduced to some of the landmark people, and they introduced us to John Coleman. John Coleman talked about, he was going to get, they were going to, one of the big things we were going to do was provide severe weather warnings for all the cable affiliates. And I got kind of in an argument with John. I said, well, how are you going to do that? Because you'd have to have, because at that time, everything was on a radar circuit. And they were individual warnings came out from the individual weather service offices on radar. And there was no central, there was no universal coding back then. So yeah. I said, how are you going to get the severe weather warnings to the people, to the cable affiliates? And I said, the only way you can do it is to have something in each weather service office across the country in order to do that. And people are looking at me like, who's this guy arguing with John Coleman, about this? What does he know? Like, who's this guy dare argue with John, for crying out loud? And I told him, I said, so he says, Al, I can argue with you all day, but I've got an ace in the hole. And his ace in the hole is supposed to be somebody from the National Weather Service. Well, that ace in the hole became, we finally were able to get I think it was $1 million. Joe can correct me if I'm wrong. It was like $1 million they had to spend with WSI had to come up with it to put these DAM boxes, data access modules, in each weather service forecast office, like I had said, and to deliver the warnings to all the warnings across the country to to our facility in Atlanta, and that's how we got the warnings. And several months later, I used to work nights all the time because John, liked my forecasting, so I was doing Good Morning America also. So usually, if somebody likes your forecast, it's a good thing. Except I got stuck on midnights all the time because of it, because I had to do Good Morning America maps for him. And so he came in one night and he says, "Okay, Lipson, you can tell me you told me so. And he walks out. We all just look at each other. So that was my experience with the damn boxes. But actually, that was interesting because that situation led eventually years later to the universal coding. And so the universal coding made it so that everybody would get all the warnings in one centrally located area, and then it gets, split out. So we kind of, were the forerunners of universal coding. So we, in addition to the zone forecast, in addition to severe weather warnings, we changed the way weather was being disseminated. And in those days, technology wasn't anything like it is today. And in those days, we had the latest technology, which would be archaic now. As far as you say, how could they have done that with 2400 watt circuits and things like that? But so we kind of helped the Weather Service and benefited all the media at the same time. It's not just the Weather Channel, but everybody was benefited from it. And also that saved a lot of lives with the universal coding. So that was one of our purposes, was not only to disseminate weather information, but also Weather Channel wanted to save lives with warnings and expert hurricane analysis and things like that.
Brian Peters, the National Weather Service doesn't turn on a dime. How in the world did you convince the director in a short time frame to totally change the format of the forecast? I can't even think of that happening today. Joe, how did you do it?
Well, at the time there was a lot of competition to the National Weather Service with local forecast companies, and they frequently, even on radio, in newspapers, the forecasts were coming from private industry, and we convinced them that you guys work so hard to do such a good job, and we have a vehicle to get your information to the public on a local basis and real time and frequently updated. And they like that idea. And it's like you said, it's like turning a battleship around and make a 90-degree turn. They managed to pull it off. It's amazing.
Yeah, that really is amazing. So there's a funny story in the book, because someone had the idea to send a nowcast at the beginning of each package down to all the head ends around the country, which was an ambitious thing too. But Al, you want to tell that story? You may have to unmute too, Al, but you want to tell that story about the forecaster who let an accidental practice nowcast get out somehow?
Let's see, was that? Well, we had several. I don't know.
Oh no, there was more than one.
We had several accidents that got out. I don't really remember the specifics on this one. There were so many.
I think there was something about a tornado that was as wide as the state of Wyoming. Was
right
coming.
That might have been. Was that the one that Garris did a test message on and said about the tornado warning for the entire state of Wyoming?
That's it.
Yes, that's
yes. And then there was another one that tornado. There was another one that got somebody fired, I believe. That went out that said tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, hurricanes, blizzards. Have a nice day. ... That went out too.
But when you didn't get a color graphic system for several years, Joe, I mean, talk about producing the graphics, because it took some artistic work to make those wonderful graphics that you used originally on the show.
You're right, and at the time, the industry was still magnetic, maps and numbers and suns and clouds on them, and it was just the start of the computer graphics era. We wound up at the very start with 6 computer graphic systems, and they grew over time. We had the first Quantel paint box, the first Aurora systems, and but we had to generate at the beginning. We generated forecasts on paper maps, the forecasters like Al, and then they would deliver it to an artist who would give him a dirty look and, and stop doing his artwork, which he much preferred doing, and did the maps. And so we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of these maps every day that had to be done. Eventually, we actually brought it into the meteorology department. We had met, graphic tech doing the graphics and producing them and saving them in the right place in a frame storage device. The on-camera meteorologists had guide sheets for their shows for the given hours, and they know what maps they needed to put in the shows, so they would just go up there and create like a slideshow, and then they go in the studio, and there were no directors. Right on a anchor desk, there were switchers, and they could switch from graphic to graphic, or while he's in the middle of or she in the middle of the map wall pointing at it, the other person in the studio could advance for him. And then the master control operator controlled, going to video from a videotape, advertising, and so forth. It was there were a lot of, as Al said, a lot of bumps in the process. There was a local weather every 8 minutes, but I think there were errors even more often than that, right, Al?
Well, I used to say that it was your local weather on the 8s, and we would say a mistake every 8 minutes, and I think that a lot of it wasn't known to the viewers, but we knew it, and sometimes it was a mistake every 5 minutes. As a matter of fact, we actually watched for an hour and timed it, and it was pretty close to about every 5 to 8 minutes that we detected some sort of mistake in addition to the local weather. So
part of the charm, though.
But like I said, most of those weren't detectable by the average viewer. But we sure were able to detect them.
So Al, what were your funniest couple of memories from your time at the Weather Channel?
Oh, there's many. I guess the infamous deal was the when they were doing the lunar eclipse, and that was the first remote that they did, and they ran all these cables up to the roof, and we were going to go to the eclipse, I don't know, every 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe every half hour or whatever, to give the view of the eclipse. And like I said, it was the first actual remote, and these cables are running up, through the steps onto the roof, and we went up there and took a look at it. And it went back down, and so the first view of the moon was okay, it was just beginning. The eclipse was just beginning, and then they came back to it, but they forgot that the moon moves, and so they had the had the camera stationary instead of moving it, and so when they came back to it, there was nothing there. So they're frantically looking for the moon, and they thought that they found it, except it was a sign on 285 of a Gulf station. And so instead of seeing the eclipse of the moon, they saw the Gulf station sign on 285. So I cracked the place up by saying, "Look, there's a Gulf station on the moon." So that cracked everything. As a matter of fact, the laughter was so loud they could hear it in the studio. From the laughter in the Met Lab was so loud they could hear it in the studio. But that was one thing. And then we had some people that like to that like to butcher up the language every once in a while, and so there were some pretty funny things said about some of the things, like instead of the Missoula, Montana, it came out Missoula, Montana, and the Poconos became the Pinocchio Mountains, things like that. So those are pretty fun on air. And then we had some pranksters that on air that they would you could, with the chroma key, I guess you could make people disappear. So with the camera, and you can make people disappear. So, and also make them reappear. So, they'd say, "Beam me up, Scotty," and somebody disappear, and then "Beam me down, Scotty," and then somebody else would disappear. We also had an update desk, and we had some occasionally. Well, there was an update desk, and it was used for updating. It was outside of the studio. It had a camera that would come out for the update desk. Well, a lot of times between the local weathers, or right after local weather, they would show the Met Lab through the update camera. Except at one time, they had the cleaning crew was looking into it, and the update camera came on right at the time that the person swoosh the garbage bag. So you see, on the update camera, you see this person swooshing open the garbage bag, from the cleaning crew. So you never know what you'd find on that on the update cameras, because it come on anytime. So those are some funny times too. And then John was a stickler for detail. If there wasn't a green blob in the right place, you'd hear about it, or you'd hear about anything. The lead forecaster got all the calls from John Coleman at the lead forecaster desk. No matter what it was, didn't have to be meteorology related, camera related, anything related, mass control related, we got the calls. And if there was something on air that wasn't right, the phone would ring. Now, I got so good at it that I could predict when that phone was going to ring. And and sure enough, I see something on air, and we at one point we got so good at it we could count it down: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It was John Coleman on the other end, and because like I said, he was a stickler. In other words, if drizzle started at 5 minutes past the hour, he expected that drizzle to be on the current map at 7 minutes past the hour. So if it wasn't on there and he saw it was drizzle, I'd get the call. And but there's one particular incident in which they had a Coleman's calendar, and a person had to do that for him. And we got a call. He wanted to talk to the guy doing the Coleman calendar. It was in the morning. Well, John's car wouldn't start, and he wanted this person to go down and pick him up to get him down to Good Morning America. And so, he's getting the directions, and he's not familiar with Atlanta. And so, another friend of mine working with Dale Dacus, there was one television set that was there, and we didn't think that he'd get him there, and so we rushed out right before John came on Good Morning America to see whether he was there or not, and to our surprise, he got him there. So that was kind of funny. It would have been funnier had he not gotten him there.
Oh boy.
So, but yeah, there's just a multitude of things. A lot of them are in the book. But,
there's some great stories in the book.
There's a lot of things that aren't in the book that that happened that probably could have been put in the book.
And there's some things in the book we can't mention on this show because we're on television. But one of those involves when I got my job at Channel 42 in Birmingham, the chief meteorologist was Fred Barnhill.
Oh yeah,
and,
Fred kept us in stitches. Yeah. You know what's in the book about that.
I do, and I debated whether it was going to be a show title, but I knew that I probably would get kicked off the panel, so I decided to let you read the book so you can find that story.
Fred came up with a lot of, like, we call him Barnhillisms. On the air. He was constant. He was a constant.
He had his own fan club in Colorado.
Yeah, I don't know where he is today. I talked to him 4 or 5 years ago, but I haven't heard from him since then.
I think he's in Dallas still.
Is he?
I think we actually might have found him. We didn't find him for the reunion, which is a disappointment. But we think that he's in Dallas working at a bank, believe it or not.
Yeah, I think he was out of the industry when I talked to him too.
Dallas is his trail went dead in Dallas, but I think he stayed in Dallas and he's working at a bank, not in television anymore.
Well, we'll have to get him back in there somehow.
Oh yeah.
My absolute favorite on the original crew was a meteorologist named Gay Dawson. Whatever happened to her?
She's in. I saw Gay several years ago. She's in Chattanooga. She spends time between Chattanooga and another house in Winter Home in Virginia, and so I think that's what she's still doing. I haven't been able to get in touch with her for a little while, but like I said, last time was a few years ago. She was at the reunion, and a couple of years, 2 or 3 years after the reunion, we'd gone to Chattanooga and saw her in Chattanooga, and also she wasn't there, but when we were driving up to Maine, I visited her place in Virginia. She gave me directions, so we saw that. But she still, like I said, I haven't been able to get a hold of her for a couple of years, and I hope she's all right. But,
I hope so too. If you ever get a chance, get her on the show for us, Al.
Yeah.
So Joe, share some of your favorite funny memories from those original years. May have frozen. Oh, you there? Hey, you there, Joe?
Oh, I'm here. Your voice was coming in and out, so I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite memories?
Well, John was a stickler, as Al said, and one of the things he realized is we weren't a national service. We were everybody's local weatherman. So he didn't want people to say, here in Atlanta, it's here in wherever, Omaha, or, and he wanted people to study not just what's going on weather-wise, but to take the atlas and learn all the states and cities and rivers and highways. And so that when weather was happening across the country, you could talk as if you were their local weather person. And that was very important to them. He called that being crisp, right up. And some of the broadcasters were very good at that. Bill Keneally was one of those that wanted to impress John, or later anybody, that he understood the country, and but that was John also felt that it was important to educate our viewers, because the smarter you made your viewers, the more they would watch, the more they would get out of watching it. So all of the features, the meteorological minutes and the neat stuff and the Coleman calendar. John reminded the OCMs, on-camera meteorologists, to frequently act as if you're getting new viewers that don't know what a green blob is, or don't understand that satellites are showing clouds, and radar shows where the rain and snow is falling. What a cold front is, leading edge of cold air. So the more they understood, the more they would get out of our coverage. And it was easier for our guys to communicate. And that gets hard. After a while, you think you've said it a few times, so now everybody must know it. But you're constantly getting new viewers, and so that was very important to John, and one of the reasons for our success, I think.
So Kim, would you agree today that it's that education process is still just as important to us as meteorologists here in the 21st century as it was back then in the 1980s?
Why wouldn't it be?
Things haven't changed, have they? So many times we hear news directors and folks want us to dumb things down, and I don't think that's right. I think what Joe just said is so important.
We had people that were managing the company after, and later time I was there, that felt that maybe we should do away with fronts, and we'll do like for the housewives to understand the weather, and that was very sexist. But I said no. with the Weather Channel. We're not a. Anyway, let CNN and the others do that.
So crawls had a whole different meaning back in those days, didn't they, Al? In terms of getting the warnings on air. We talk about crawls running across the bottom of the screen. You had a different kind of crawl, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, we had. We had mass control one night. Put a crawl across. Got the mass control guy fired. but the crawl that bases across was. I said it was, as John made, we'd have the time and the temperature and what else was down there, Joe? Was time, temperature. As a matter of fact, they did a promo on it, and John's saying, he's pointing to this is we're not the time channel, we're the weather channel, but we have the time and the temperature and the precipitation and the cable company down here, explaining the it really wasn't crawl, it was explaining what we had at the bottom of the screen.
But you may have been talking about the crawling into the studios with warnings.
That's right.
Oh, that kind of crawl. Okay. Yeah. Listen, it was 36 years ago. Oh yeah, with people crawling into the studio because they had to crawl underneath the camera. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right, Joe. See, Joe's a little older than I am. He still comes up with it. He came up and saved me. I was talking about something entirely different.
He handled that very diplomatically, didn't he, Al? So Al, Sylvester Stallone.
Joe's always the diplomat.
He is. Sylvester Stallone's a big fan of the show. He watches all the time. I hear you've got a private message you'd like to get to him. This would be a good forum for you to share with him, Al.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the one of my little peeves at the Weather Channel. So I had to do a lot of the forecasting, naturally, as lead forecaster. Well, there was one of the production people. I don't know, or it was production, but one of the I think the production person was good friends with Sylvester Stallone's secretary, and so I would get a call from my boss, Dave Sankey, who would then say attach me into his secretary. He'd want a forecast for where he was flying, everywhere, and one or two times is fine, but come on, do a promo for the Weather Channel, for crying out loud. If you're going to do something, but you can't do anything. And it got to the point where I said, so many times, I said to the secretary, I said, listen, I said, if Sylvester wants his own private meteorologist, I said, have him give me a call. I might be available, and that kind of stopped it a little bit. But if he reads the book, and I put it in the book, I said, Sly, I said, remember all those forecasts I get, that you got from the Weather Channel? I said, at least maybe you could give me an autograph, a copy of a picture of you or something, But so far, there's been no response. Evidently, he hasn't read the book yet.
Well, maybe he'll see you on WeatherBrains tonight. I kind of doubt it, Brian Peters. Do you?
You never know. You never know. And then we'd also Dave Sankey, who was my boss. He used to work for Continental Airlines, and Mr. Six was the head of Continental Airlines, and he married Audrey Meadows. And so when Audrey Meadows would like forecast also. So one day I get a call and it says from Dave. He says, I've got Audrey Meadows on the line, she's going to New York and wants to know what the weather's going to be. So I said, okay. All right. So Audrey Meadows, sure enough, she says, hello, I'm Audrey Meadows. I'm going to New York and I need to know whether I should wear my mink coat or not. Back then, mink coats in the 80s were, much bigger deal than they are now. I think everybody has a mink coat today. And, so I gave her a forecast also a couple of times, but I didn't mind that. She didn't call all the time.
So you did one of the first hurricane remotes, Al.
Yeah, I did.
Talk about that experience.
That was fun. I've never done that. It was my first and last because they probably didn't like, I wasn't waving in a 20-mile-an-hour wind like they do today. Oh, they got to hype it up. And, I'm looking at the Alps and the winds are blowing like 20 miles an hour. And the guy out there, he's bobbing in the 20-mile-an-hour wind, to make it look more exciting. And so I guess I wanted to go up there, and I was the only one available because the OCNs weren't going to go there. So I flew up. This was Gloria. I think it was 1983. And so I flew up and to I forget, it was someplace in North Carolina. Rented a car, went out to Morehead City and around in that area because it was going to be the hurricane was going to become pretty close to the Outer Banks. And and John would always say, he didn't, you have to stay inland because of the storm surge. He didn't want me out, too close to it, although I wanted, to be there. And so, so yeah, like I said, I did the first remote. It was out of a phone booth. That's how the communications, how archaic it was. No cell phones back then. And I was driving through the city, Morehead City, and all the news crews, they were out for a while. But then when the winds picked up about 70 or 80 miles an hour, they all were hunkered down in the police station. And so, and I did live remotes about every half hour from a phone booth that was in front of a Sears store because there was going to be the north wind. We were going to be on the west side of it, and so it was being sheltered by the Sears store. And so I'm using a phone booth, which some people don't even remember what a phone booth is today. What's a phone booth? What are you talking about? And, we have to collect into, back to the Weather Channel, and collect call to the Weather Channel, and we accept the charges. Oh yeah, they accepted the charges, and so I was doing remotes, and we were in the eye wall. Winds probably sustained about 90 miles an hour where I was, and but I was pretty well protected. But the last phone call, it was maybe, like I said, about 90, 95 mile an hour, maybe some higher gusts, but the car was rocking because I had parked the car in front of the phone booth, and the wind was kind of rocking. There's always a give to the car. It was actually rocking it a little bit, and but I remember one time we got a squall that came in, a rain band that came in. The winds picked up to maybe 60, 70 miles an hour. They had some power outages, and I went down to the emergency management system and everything. And even back then, they said, well, and then in between that and the actual, getting closer to the eye wall, it wasn't all that exciting because, unless you get a rain band, you don't get really strong winds in between until you really get closer to the storm itself. So there's several hours that, winds are 30, 40 miles an hour, might go up to 50 in a rain band. But they were telling me, you're make it more exciting. I said, what do you mean make it more exciting? I said, I'm not a TV meteorologist, I said, well, it's not exciting. I said, I'm reporting exactly what's going on, I'm not going to sit there and make things up like they do today, where they're running in, where they're blowing in a 20-mile-an-hour wind for crying out loud. And so I don't think they like that. But, and that was, like I said, that was the last remote I ever did. But it was great because I never chased. I chased tornadoes, but I never been in a hurricane like that. And so that was my first hurricane, and then I lived in Florida. So last year in September was my second hurricane with Irma, which I was kind of disappointed in, believe it or not. People said crazy, but by the time it got up to my area, it was kind of just a strong Category 2. But further south down toward Naples, Marco Island, had a fairly strong Category 3, but it dissipated quite a bit. But even then, we were in the northern eyewall, which is pretty exciting. We had some gusts, maybe close to 100 with gusts in the northern eyewall. And I was hoping the eye would go pretty much over our house. Matter of fact, my neighbor, if the eye was going to come over the house, he was going to send his drone up into the eye. And but it was 7 miles to the east of us where the eye went. So we didn't get a drone up into it.
Wow. So Joe, take us back to the excitement leading up to May the 2nd, 1982. Why was that date chosen to launch the channel?
That the National Academy of Broadcasting meeting was in Las Vegas on May 2nd. So although I started working with John in the hot summer of 1980 in July. And it was in July of 1981 where we had gotten the go-ahead. And we were in Las Vegas to do a video at the Landmark TV station with Tom Skilling, John Milan, and Joe Whitty, and John Coleman, and myself, the artist. And we did a lot of examples of what they'd be seeing with the Weather Channel, promoting our technology, the technology that was coming. And then I was sent down to Atlanta in October, set up a temporary office. I hired 2 of my students to help me with the hiring process. And during that time, John and I were meeting constantly to outline the products, to decide exactly how many people it would take to do the work, and how we should divvy it up among the forecasters, how many broadcasters would we need, and how would we, team them up, and where do we get them? We can't go after big market TV guys because their salary would blow our budget as it was. We went after small market, young people, some medium market, but mostly small, or people that had some talent, did some college TV, and impressed us enough to do on air. But these people, with the hiring process, started with the job announcements in the AMS and NWA job announcements in November, December. We got resumes and tapes in the mail starting in January. The 3 of us started hiring a lot over the phone. A number of people came in. Al came into the office and showed that he could do he could be one of the lead forecaster at the Weather Channel. We had some of the young people that had worked. I had 10 or 12 of my students from Linden State there. Some of them had done TV up in Vermont on cable, and we put them on tape, and John approved. So starting in March, they showed up in Atlanta in this big empty floor where all of the offices, all of the art area, the studios are going to go for on-air and production. But it was empty, and it was nothing but folding chairs when 120 people showed up in Atlanta, March 1, 1982. And they walk in the door and looking, eyes are wide open. When are we going to be on air? Oh, May 2nd. Oh, really? And I never saw a building process as fast as occurred there. By the end of March, we had offices, and we had a studio, and we had equipment coming in and being connected. We started practicing in April, and actually was going out over satellite, but unless you knew how to grab the signal, and none of the cable companies were using it. It was just for our review. And May 2nd, we were on the air. So with just a month of practice, and we flipped the switch. John did a lot of discussions in the NAB. There's a link to the video on weatherchannelpioneers.com. The video of the lead up to the start, and then Andre Bernier, who we had hoped would be here, was one of the 2 meteorologists that got the pick of the draw to do the first half hour on the air. And was it 8:32 p.m. Hal?
I thought it was 9. Was it 8:32? It could have been. I was busy making maps.
Yeah. They flipped the switch, and the longest ever weather show began.
And they call it the nonstop weather marathon. And that's kind of been that way for 36 years now. But they dubbed it the nonstop weather marathon.
So I'll ask the panel a little trivia question. Joe already referred to Andre, but who was the other on-camera meteorologist on that opening segment? Aubrey, you have any recollection of that? I know you don't remember it. But...
I don't remember.
How about you, Kim? Do you know who the other on camera was?
One alive. Wish I could.
Yeah, no Googling. Stop. Mute her, James. Mute her. Brian, do you remember the other?
No, I sure don't.
So who was it, Joe?
Bruce Edwards or Bruce Kalinowski.
Yep. Have we ever had Bruce on the show, Brian? I couldn't remember.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. We've had a lot of great Weather Channel folks, but not. I don't think Bruce. That would be a fun get to have. We've had Andre before. He's been on the show from Cleveland, but not him. So, talk about the departure of John Coleman, Joe. That had to be a heartrending thing for him and probably for a lot of other people too.
And a shock to everybody. I guess we weren't aware of what was going on behind the scenes. The struggle over the control of the whole, the whole company management. John wanted and was the CEO, COO, and principal manager at the start and for the first 15, 16 months, but they wanted to have their own control, Landmark Communications, over the business side of the company. They wanted to have their own CEO come in and manage the business, and John, they wanted him to be the voice and the on air when he had no longer was with Good Morning America at the time. And you'd be promoting, you'd be on air, you're leading the troops, and but John, this was his baby, and he fought so hard for it for 5 years that he resisted that, and he bartered for it. He gave up his his percentage of the company for an opportunity to find another investor, and couldn't do it in the time, a lot of time, and he was gone, and everybody was in shock. Some people left. The tapes went flying out, right, Al?
Yeah. Tape shortage.
We didn't know if we were going to survive. We were starting to believe that maybe we weren't going to succeed. But we were getting very good reviews. We were the top, favorite channel for new cable companies and services, in surveys, and people were watching. 40% of the viewers were watching, at least twice a day, average of 28 minutes, and we were the most satisfying channel. But still, we were only getting money from advertising, and the number of viewers were relatively small, so it wasn't enough to support us. But the company, we had fixed costs. That was a big advantage. We weren't sending crews all around the world at the time, and so we knew how much it was going to cost us to keep going. And the solution was the cable industry was growing, and all these, and they knew in order to charge cable fees, subscriber fees, they needed to have programming. So they agreed to, they started to give in on the idea of, okay, we're going to pay subscriber fees to the services like the Weather Channel. And once we got that, it wasn't long before we were printing money, but John wasn't there. And but we said, what do we do? All these people came, at our urging, and with some excitement to Atlanta to try something and new and exciting, and we got to give it our all and see if we can't make it succeed even without John. We'll take his dream and make it happen. And so that's what we did. And so it was very hard for us, though. A lot of people left. Al, you left when?
I left in '86.
I left in '88.
Yeah.
A lot of television stations around the country benefited from those Weather Channel folks. Right here in Birmingham, Jerry Tracy, who has been on the air for a long time here, came from the Weather Channel in the late '80s. So I don't know if y'all remember Jerry from your time there or not, but he's still on the air here in Birmingham.
And the local stations changed, didn't they? They started doing weather midday, morning, and multiple hits in the morning to try to provide weather when people needed it, not just on in the evening at 6 and 11.
So Joe, there were critics that said that John should have delegated more. How would you respond to that, knowing his management style and his heart for the company?
John had been at it so long that he felt he understood what people wanted, and that his ideas were, were going to prove to be right. And it was tough working with him at times, but it was very rewarding. He was very, if you did the job for him, like he really liked Al, and he knew Al was tough. And but he would never would have got rid of Al, and he could have delegated more. Well, he felt that you needed people that knew the the industry and broadcasting and meteorology, and so there were a lot of young people at the Weather Channel. So. He, at the time, and it was only 16 months into it, there wasn't a lot of delegation on his part, but there was a lot of interaction with the on-camera staff. Memos came out frequently, and people had to put the date and time on the memos because they would say this one overrides the one I got 2 days ago. Right, Al?
Yeah, the memos were flying out. Matter of fact, I think you have, you still have all those memos that I sent you for the book, and that's just a fraction of the memos that would come out. There was at least a memo or two a day, and it was about being crisp. It was about being this or being that, or And then there was the flippant and sophomoric memos that because I guess upper management above landmark management of John, they didn't like some of the shenanigans that were going on. But really, that was what they missed the boat there, as far as I'm concerned, because it wasn't. And John wasn't against it. It was landmark that didn't like the shenanigans that were going on, and that was what made the Weather Channel then. I mean, that's why people viewed it. They viewed for the personalities. Everybody had a different personality. And when that personality was allowed to come through, whether it's sophomoric, flippant, or sophomoric, that's what made the Weather Channel, like I said, reality TV. That's what people liked. I called it weathertainment. They got the weather information and they were entertained at the same time. And and that really, I think, is why the cable companies liked it and they agreed to the nickel subscriber fee. Because I mean, if we're putting out, the pioneers, the people that were there from the start and in the early years, if we would have put out 1,000 product, including everybody was involved, the artists, the meteorologists, the on-camera people. I mean, if the cable companies would have said, well, the Weather Channel's a piece of garbage, we're not going to give you a nickel a subscriber, that would have been the end of the Weather Channel. But that wasn't the case. They said, yeah, we like it, and we'll give you that nickel subscriber fee. But I mean, they made that decision based on what the Weather Channel was at the time. And back then, the Weather Channel was really the Weather Channel. Their middle name was Weather, and that's exactly what we produced. And then as the years went on, they forgot what their middle name was, as far as I'm concerned. And I said, even back then, When the last few months, I was working. I said they're forgetting their middle name here. The weather, and that's what made the channel. Weather made the channel, and like I said, we made the Weather Channel made the media stand up and look and say, geez, maybe we're making a mistake by not giving much time to the television meteorologists. We need to spend more time. People like the weather. And today you see it on all the major networks. And I mean, weather is almost in the forefront now. I mean, especially if there's a severe weather event, like a hurricane or a blizzard or whatever. They bring in their meteorologists onto the networks, and cable television has their own meteorologists now. Local TV, if there's a severe weather event, people are complaining because their soap operas are taken off of the air. That never happened in 1982 before the Weather Channel. You watch soap operas and a tornado be heading your way and you wouldn't know about it. But now all the severe weather, it's wall-to-wall coverage on some of these stations now. I think we played an important part in making that happen.
Well,
that saves lives.
John in his whole career had antics he was famous for, even in his last job in San Diego. When the weather was serious, John was very serious and conveyed good information. But when it was quiet, John would dance and have fun. He would dance to the Sosa, the Southern Santa Ana, or to the idea that the sun is finally going to replace the low clouds, or it's Friday. That was John. And on the Weather Channel, we had fun when it was quiet, but when it was severe weather was occurring, bad weather, we took it more seriously. We didn't make it. There were times it was funny. We made mistakes, but we took it seriously, and that I think that was the right way to go on that. And later on, by the way, as Al said, it evolved into as other owners came in and they decided that they needed to do long form programming, so they did an hour video with Jim Cantori and my dear friend Mish Michaels, called Atmospheres, and they would play that at night. And there was one night where we had a severe weather outbreak in the central part of the country. It was on the weekend, but that hour was scheduled to show this tape feature. And so people were tuning into the Weather Channel to see about the tornadoes. And there was a tape feature talking about why Holland is such a great place to grow tulip bulbs. And, boy, did they get complaints from cable companies and viewers. And that show was canceled. And some of it, Master Control may have been fired for not saying, hey, wait a minute, guys, the weather's got to take, important first, level of importance at this point.
Hey, fellas, real quick before we take a break, in his final years, John Coleman was demonized by some in the weather enterprise based on his position on anthropogenic global warming. Do you think that was fair for that to happen?
Of course not. But hey, he wasn't alone. But he was in San Diego and in Orange County area where he had some support. John was a real scientist all his life. He may not have had a advanced degree in meteorology, but he looked at data and not theory or what government or non-government agencies say I should believe. But he looked at information, data, and he made a decision based on what he found. And he did videos there. They let him do that at the station. Scripps Oceanographic, which at one time under Jerome Namias was I would have loved to have worked there. Jerome Namias was one of my heroes. He believed in how ocean warm and cold pools really control where the jet stream bends, and you can use that for seasonal forecast. something I've followed for many years. But he died, and they moved to CO2 and become the official source of CO2 from Mauna Loa. But Scripps wanted equal time, so they wanted an hour on KUSI to counter John's video that he did on KUSI explaining why natural factors are important, and Roger Revelle, which Al Gore said was so right about it, had changed his mind in his later near the end of his career, saying I think I'm wrong, but he still got he had the courage to fight that, and not only on air they let him do that, but he had his own blog, which was very popular.
And one more thing, fellas, is there a need for the Weather Channel today? Because so many people get their weather information on the phone. Is there a need for the Weather Channel today? Will there be a need for the Weather Channel in 10 years from today?
That's something that they're trying to figure out right now. They certainly have moved into mobile technology delivery. They were bought out by an entertainment company, and now they're doing computer simulation of the studio being destroyed by a tornado. And I don't know where they'll be in 10 years. I don't know where they'll be in 2 years. Al, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, well, yeah, it certainly has come. It's taken a different path than we had envisioned it to become when we were working back in 1982. Especially the 1990s, it really kind of started to move away from weather. There was beginnings of it even in the mid 80s. I could see, a change. That's one reason I, went and moved on to work at Federal Express in their meteorology department. And today it's I think there's it's taken a totally different direction. I don't know what direction it's going to take under new management. It's kind of ironic that the Weather Channel in 1982 was the butt of all the comedians' jokes, and now here in 2018 it was bought out by a comedian. So does that mean that it's gone full circle? It's from 1982 to being bought out by comedians, and the comedians were trying to make the Weather Channel a laughing stock. Obviously, new technology, people don't need. They can get their weather information on cell phones, everywhere else. But I still think that some people still don't use cell phones. They don't use this. And I think that there's still a place for the Weather Channel if they would redesign their programming and make it weathertainment again, like we did in 1982. And I think it would still be viable, because it's just when you get weather information over the phone or on your computer, it's a vanilla envelope. It's not, where the Weather Channel can still put the personal touch into weather and still be informative, be entertaining, be educational. So if it was run right, I would think the Weather Channel would continue to go on for many, many years. But I'm fearful that it's not going to be run right, because it was bought out by an entertainment company. What do they know about weather? I mean, why did the entertainment company buy the Weather Channel?
All right, fellas. Well, thank you guys for being on the show. So again, how do we get this book? Promote away. This is your chance to promote. Go.
Go to, first of all, weatherchannelpioneers.com. On that introduction to it, you'll see some of the videos, the video of the launch, some musical videos that promote the book and our effort. And there's a link to Amazon. The book is selling at the 4th of July special price of $17.76, and we've gotten wonderful reviews. 7 out of 7 5-stars so far. The problem is, this new world of publication, self-publishing is great. The old way was very slow and cumbersome, but they provided some promotion, and that's our challenge. So we're trying to we're doing this to help to promote the book and get interest in it. I think if you're a fan of the Weather Channel over the years, I think you'll really enjoy reading the book.
We also have a Facebook page too, which is Weather Channel Pioneers. The book is the Facebook page for it also, and has links, to buy the book. And it's a great read. Like I said, we just touched on it tonight, but there are a lot of stories. A lot more people other than Joe, myself, and John wrote into the book. And then there's a chapter about the nice reunion that we had 6 years ago, which was truly magical as far as I was concerned. And,
awesome. Well, guys,
I was
going to say, guys, I have got to go next door to do some local news here. So thank both of you guys for coming on the show. Fascinating. And again, like Bill talked about, we could talk about this all night long. Those of us old enough to remember the good old days of the Weather Channel. But thank you guys for your work, and look forward to reading that book. Thanks, fellas. You'll have a great week.
Okay, you too.
Thanks, you. Joe. Thanks, Al.
Right, thanks, guys. So we are going to take a break here for Professor Peters and Tony Rice. And when we come back, we'll do Weather Roundup and Picks of the Week. And Bill Murray, the floor is going to belong to you because I've got some television to do. But don't go away. WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
As James Spann points out on occasion, I worked for the National Weather Service for 36 years in a career spanning a number of stations across the southeastern U.S. before he invited me to join him as part of the weather team at ABC 3340 in Birmingham. The National Weather Service, as you probably know, is the agency of the U.S. government that handles the duties of preparing watches, warnings, along with daily 7-day weather forecasts across all portions of the country. Perusing some newsy items from the Weather Service, I thought I would share some interesting facts about that dedicated group of meteorologists. Each year, the United States averages some 10,000 thunderstorms, 5,000 floods, 1,300 tornadoes, and 2 Atlantic hurricanes. Besides this violent weather, you can add widespread droughts and wildfires. These weather, water, and climate events cause an average of approximately 650 deaths and $15 billion in damage per year. These events account for some 90% of all presidentially declared disasters. In the course of their work each year, the National Weather Service collects some 76 billion observations and issues approximately 1.5 million forecasts and 50,000 warnings. And the economic impact can be staggering. About 1/3 of the U.S. economy, approximately $3 trillion, is sensitive to weather and climate. The National Weather Service provides weather, hydrologic, and climate forecasts and warnings to the United States, its territories, adjacent waters, and ocean areas for the protection of life and property and the enhancement of the national economy. So what does this cost? You might be surprised to learn that all of this service is provided for about $3 a year, less than the cost of one specialty coffee drink from your neighborhood coffee shop. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Later this week, there'll be a partial solar eclipse. But don't start planning a road trip just yet. It's only visible from the extreme South Pacific. Best views will be from Antarctica, and even then, only 23% of the sun will be covered. Australia and New Zealand will be able to see the eclipse, but only about 5% will be covered. Even with eclipse glasses, you have to look pretty hard to see much of a difference. Have patience, though. 2024 is coming. Elsewhere in the sky, we reached aphelion, or the point in Earth's orbit furthest from the sun last week. Yes, Earth is closest to the sun in the dead of winter and furthest in the peak of summer, at least here in the northern hemisphere. Remember, it's the axial tilt, how it contributes to the amount of sunlight directly received, that impacts temperatures the most. The sun's a little smaller in the sky this summer, but not by much. The sun has an angular measurement of a little more than half a degree, and that varies from perihelion to aphelion by only about a minute of angular measurement, or a 60th of a degree. Also look for the moon and Mercury to cozy up this weekend. The first rock from the sun is a rare sight. It's often lost in the glare of the sun, and at just 8 seconds of angular diameter, it's so small that it's easily missed. Look for Mercury directly beneath and pointed to by a sliver of moon after sunset on Saturday. Look to the upper left, and you'll see the next rock in from the sun, Venus, shining even bigger and brighter. That's your astronomy outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
So Brian, I take it that Aubrey going to her avatar and Kim going to her avatar means it's just you and I left.
It looks that way.
Yeah, Aubrey just responded. I asked if she could talk. She said not anymore. So
that's the problem with the 10 o'clock hour.
I was spoiled by this eclipse this year, Brian. We have to wait till 2024.
I know
for that again. I talk like that's a long time, but that was a lot of fun last year.
Yeah.
So that would be fun. So Brian, there's Kim. She's back. Kim, when did you come into this Weather Channel thing? Early, late? When did you become a fan of the Weather Channel?
Man, I always wished that I had it growing up, but I didn't have cable. It wasn't until college that I had access to it, and then I watched it pretty religiously. And actually, me telling my parents the tales of how marvelous it was got them to get cable. We were just talking about this past week. That's how cable was introduced to my family. It was because the Weather Channel was just so neat and interesting. And it did all of those things that they were talking about, that there are mothers and fathers who could see what the weather was like for the children who'd left the nest. And they could see a bigger perspective than they were accustomed to seeing with just their local weather and what it really offered. So that's where I came into it. And I brought a lot of others with me when I did.
Yes. So Brian, did you have any favorite Weather Channel memories?
No, not really.
You were living the weather. You didn't have time to watch the weather.
Well, yeah. My career with the Weather Service was all over the southeastern U.S. and I was trying to think in 1982. I was trying to think exactly where I was. I think I was out in Fort Worth, Texas, and believe it or not, I didn't have cable either at that particular time. So,
yeah, we didn't have cable. And my friend Casey Carson, his dad knew I loved weather, so he invited me up to watch he thought it was so hilarious. I guess he secretly loved the Weather Channel too, but he loved to watch me watch the Weather Channel, because being a kid that only had access to no weather radio and commercial radio and driving the folks out at the Weather Service crazy. It wasn't 28 minutes a day. When I finally got cable, it was more like 28 hours a day.
Yeah.
By that.
Yeah. I think I was actually in Memphis, come to think of it, in 82. I was trying to think of it when the Weather Channel started. And I remember, I do have a fond memory of that damn box, the DAM, because we were the forecast office for Tennessee in Memphis, and I remember that box getting put in, and I mean it wasn't anything exciting. It was just this little electronic box.
What was it hooked into, to the AFOS, Brian?
I'm really not sure, Bill. I know it linked our data to the Weather Channel, the warnings, but I'm not really sure exactly where they were getting it, whether they were getting it off the weather wires were all state weather wires back then.
Right.
There was no, national weather wire or anything. So it may have just been from the weather wire circuit. And something in the back of my mind says that was where that box was connecting, was actually to the weather wires, which is why they had to have one in every state.
Yeah. It's just amazing to me that they pulled that off.
Yeah.
It was funny talking about crawls because, I was working at the CBS affiliate from 91 to 96 doing weekend weather, and that gradually morphed into more than that, especially severe weather. And along the way, the owner of the station he didn't care for weather, and he hated to see weather interrupt any programming, especially NCAA basketball, which was a staple on CBS. And the day of the big tornado in Goshen, up in St. Clair County, Brian, I was working and we had gone through the entire day, and I battled all day with Master Control to be on the air, and because Fred was, I think they were filming the movie.
Yes, Fred and I were in the same place. We were out at Rickwood Field.
And of course he had to be there, so I got this this unbelievable opportunity to work this red letter severe weather day.
Yeah.
In 1994. And I was, number one, and still to this day, they show a church service, at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. And that was right when the tornado was beginning to happen.
Yeah.
And I ran upstairs to say, we have to go in the air. We have to go in the air. And they're like, it's not in our DMA. I'm like, we got to go, it's not in our area. We got to go in the air. We got to go in the air. And they said, we'll go after the church service is over. And we did as soon as it was. So I was finding that sort of headwind all day.
Yeah.
When, Brian, I don't know if you remember, but there was a tornado that came through southern Jefferson County along highway, I guess it would have been 150 or 119. It came, I guess, in northern Shelby.
Yeah.
And there were tornado warnings, and, I was feverishly trying to get on the air, and I got a call from the station owner who said, don't interrupt NCAA basketball again.
Oh, my God.
So I wrote a crawl. And the crawl said, tornado warnings in effect for Shelby and Jefferson and Shelby counties. The tornadoes on the ground, Highway 150. Please turn to Channel 6 for more details. And I took it up to master control of the Chiron operator. Said, would you run this for me? And I got all the way back down to the weather set before he realized what I had written. And he called down. He said, that's funny. I can't believe. I packed up and left and went home. And after that, because it was just, you can't fight those sort of headwinds. But that was funny that Fred Barnhill has a prominent place in the book, and you'll have to buy the book if you want to see the word that is prominently featured in there in several of the people's accounts of the Weather Channel days. And I'll just say that he munged the word sorghum. That's all I'll say. And you'll have to buy the book.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I will say. So anyway, what else? I know Joe's buddy Joe Bastardi's predicting a big hurricane season along the East Coast this year with all that warm water out there. So, Brian, got any thoughts on that?
He's the only one then, because everybody else is playing down their forecasts.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Joe about that. That's going to be interesting. There's a lot of warm water out there for sure. And
well, I said at the beginning of the show, I don't know if you were there, but when we were doing the preview, that Phil Klotzbach published an interesting fact today about this early in the hurricane season to have had, or about to have had 2 hurricanes as of tomorrow, if Chris will behave and do what forecasters think he's going to do. And it's interesting that one season was followed by a super active year, and one season was followed by an active year, and one season was followed by a very low year. So the number of tornadoes by July 10th, or the number of hurricanes by July 10th, is no indication of what the season
correlation
is
right
like.
there, Brian. The number of tornadoes and major hurricanes. Well, that sounds like a very Goldlockian approach to forecasting there, Brian.
Oh yeah. I look at these real great anomalous things like James Spann being out of the state.
That's what
those things about. Those things enter my forecasting.
So go ahead and write down the week of August 25th through the 30th, because
I'll be headed to the coast for a hurricane.
Hurricanes, snowstorms. There's no telling what else will come.
And speaking of hurricanes, I have no pick of the week tonight, Bill. So, but I don't get the foghorn because Bill doesn't have one of those.
You get mine and Kim's foghorn. Yeah, I guess the weather roundup is pretty calm except for heat. Looks like a flash flood warning. Our flash flood watch in southwestern Colorado around the 416 burn scar, and then mostly it's just heat except for thunderstorms that are severe tonight up in northeastern Montana and northwestern North Dakota. So, Kim, how's the weather in Oklahoma?
Beautiful. We had a beautiful day. It cooled off a little bit, so we've just been sort of in the lower 90s, and our dew points in the upper 60s, which is a vast improvement over last week. Yeah. So we're no longer a steamy sauna and sort of settling into something a little bit more palatable for July. So I'm also watching Chris with a lot of interest because I'll soon be going to Nova Scotia. And that's supposed to be this weekend. So if get picked up and scoot out of there really quickly on Thursday, that would be great.
I thought you would be wanting it to come while you were there.
While I'm there, but while I'm flying there, that seems like not fun. So it would be that my baby moon would get interrupted by a hurricane. That's exactly how this is going to happen. Yeah,
very appropriate.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I remember flying into San Antonio last year ahead of Harvey, and driving down to the Texas coastal plain to babysit a hotel. It was eerie. I mean, that Thursday night, seeing the lightning, the huge thunderstorms, 100 miles offshore, driving that drive down from San Antonio to Beeville was just like, very surreal. Yeah. And of course, the next day was crazy. So yeah, those hurricanes are an experience. Brian and I had a couple of them in 2005 that we experienced together.
Yep.
And Brian was out there with his hair flapping in the breeze, and I was sitting in the van, all safe and sound, and woke up on Monday morning or Tuesday morning after Katrina, and my computer would not come on, Kim.
Oh no!
My laptop computer would not come on. And when I got back to Birmingham and the Dell people came out and opened it up, they said, "Mr. Murray, have you been to the beach?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I've been at the coast, but I didn't go to the beach. I was just sitting in a van doing weather."
Sand?
And they said, "Your computer is full of sand." And I mean, literally, he dumped out enough sand on my desk to do a sand painting.
Just a bunch of fine particles coming in the van anyway through whatever the air systems and everything else. Wow.
I think it was Katrina that I found out that you don't volunteer for your photographer to stand in the wind, because that sea salt and the sand that are in the moisture that's flying at 50 miles an hour hurts.
Yeah, it will tattoo quickly.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we call an exfoliation.
Yes, you can get exfoliated very quickly. Yes,
you go to a fancy spa and pay a lot of money for what you got.
There you go.
Yeah, but I don't volunteer for that anymore. I thought, what's the good of a picture out here without somebody standing there as a reference? And but I won't do that ever again.
That means we can't go to the coast for a hurricane again, Brian?
No, I'll go to the coast of a hurricane in a flash.
Okay, all right.
I'm not going to stand out there and get exfoliated.
There you go. No spa experience for you. All right, Kim, I think you're the only one with a pick of the week, so give it up.
All right. Well, my pick of the week is actually a page from the Storm Prediction Center from our guest last week. It's the page that was created to house their lecture series for the Storm Prediction Center and School of Meteorology, having put together this bevy of it's just sort of a repository of the scientific knowledge of the SPC and other forecasters in the building. So it's sort of an advanced severe weather forecasting course. And if you're interested in either the historical components of the science or, getting some of the lectures themselves, it's a one-of-a-kind kind of class. And that's a really great repository.
It really is, yeah.
Outstanding. So, Brian Peters, will you be at the Central Alabama WA chapter meeting tomorrow night?
No, Bill, I can't. I wish I could. Yeah, I got a previous commitment for that evening here locally, so I wished I could. I was hoping to, but can't.
Yeah, we're going to meet the new MIC, the National Birmingham tomorrow night.
Yeah.
He'll speak to us, and then we'll enjoy a baseball game. And if you're out and about, it's probably too late to RSVP for those tickets, but come on down to Regents Field tomorrow night, and we'll be somewhere behind home plate. You can come join us. It'll be a lot of fun. So, Kim, anything you need to add before we adjourn tonight?
Nope. I think this was just a wonderful show. It's always so fun to hear people who are pioneers that way, having done what they did, just really changed the whole field. So cool.
They really did. It's a great book. It's a bunch of first-person narratives from people that were involved, and it is a fast, fun read. And if you get a chance to get it, I highly recommend it. So it was fun having Joe, and would have been fun to have Andre tonight. I had some questions for him. Brian, they used to have a call-in part of the Weather Channel. Do you remember that? They had a contest where you would call and be the caller. And so they reveal in the book, and I feel really cheated because, they would say, hey, if you're the 30-second caller, call and you'll win something. And so I would feverishly, of course, call. And they reveal in the book that, most nights they didn't feel like sitting around and waiting for 32 calls to answer. So they would just take the first call and say, Hi, your caller number 32.
Wow. Wow.
So I felt so cheated and deflated when I read that. But
They were a reality show.
Yes, they were. But maybe we should take callers, Brian. That would be good on here sometime. We'll have to figure out how to do that.
Y'all have a good evening.
Yep, y'all too.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week when Dr. David Peterson is our guest. And until then, I'm Bill Murray. Hope you have a great week of weather. Thanks, and talk to you later.
Good night, Kim. Good night, Bill.
Bye.
Night, guys.